Tentacles, quite possibly one of the most infamous genres that represent the media I analyze to this day. Tentacles and Witches, an adaptation of the erotic game of the same name made by the Lilith Company. It was a game that I wanted to play. I wanted to take a deeper dive into this universe, solely for research purposes, obviously, Iris. But I was not trying to risk a product ranked 2.24 stars out of 5 on a shady website. Let me know if you'd be willing to break your entire computer for an erotic PNG/social simulator. It's worse than Honey Pop. What's up, guys? Evan47 here. Welcome to Watch Reply. Subscribe for more content coming your way, and like the video as well. For those of you who don't know what Watch and Plot is, I got you. Basically, I troll through the catacombs of the darkest parts of the internet to find and review anime that no one would want to hear me rant about in real life. And the best way to summarize Tentacle and Witches in the most brief and broad way possible is this. Imagine if a slice of life romance took a complete 180 9 minutes into the show and became a tentacle-fueled inflation pregnancy simulator. Let's get into this, shall we? So with this episode, we break down quite a bit here. By seeing our boy Ichiro snooping around a dilapidated mansion, and right through the hole, he sees his teacher. That's right, she is a magician who transitions into a witch's outfit through a sort of lewd magical girl transformation. And one can assume she's practicing in her basement specifically for the purposes of some sort of combat in the near future. And while he is gleefully looking and leering at his teacher, he gets confronted by Lily, one of his classmates. And the moment he asks who she is, we flash to the past to give us context to who Lily and to who Yuko, the witch he saw, was in the first place. And it looks like it's earlier in the day or a day beforehand. We're outside. It looks like it's a PE, physical education event. And Yuko's getting hit on by Ichiro, and the tsundere Lily has to knock him down a few pegs, because that's the trope here. And if you cannot get over the tsundere trope, it is 100% saturation in this video, this series, so you are going to either have to get used to it or automatically clock out. And after this comical scene here,
朝から晩まで寝る間もなく24時間365日こき使ってあげるわ。
なんだあいつ、お姫様気取りしやがって。おい立花、リリー様になんて口聞いてんだ。
お前なんかが話しかけていい相手じゃないんだぞ。
お気を悪くして転校しちゃったらどうするつもりだ。
We flash back into Lily meeting Ichiro. Now, once we're back to present day, we find out that Lily had an ominous charm that she bought from a bootleg merchant earlier in the day. And her specific purpose for buying this ominous charm was to cast it upon Ichiro. And from what I can surmise, the only instigating incident that led up to this was Lily being jealous of Ichiro hitting on Yuko in the first place. So yeah, I'd say it's definitely an odd way to transform the main character to make them meet the qualification of the title of the show. But as we find out later on, he was predisposed to being prolific with magic anyway, and this sort of jumpstarted his awakening. So long story short, while Lily did cause the future demise and future impregnation of herself, it was going to happen anyway. So once she uses the charm, he obviously blacks out, wakes up a different being. And when he wakes up, he has Yuko and Lily just leering over him because he obviously passed out. It looks entirely different, being a sentient tentacle monster and all. So I bet you're wondering, hey, Evan L, where is the quote-unquote plot? Well, funnily enough, like I just mentioned, 9 minutes into the series, Yuko thought of that as well. And here's a response to this situation.
怪獣はとても厄介なの。かなり時間がかかるわ。
そんな。
来た。
俺、なんてことを。
一郎君、私を。
No. Hold on. The canon reason why she's saying this is because witches have the mana reserves to make it so the tentacle monsters or any beings that get summoned that have the power to impregnate women at scale, if they impregnate a witch in this particular instance that has mana reserves that will be able to neuter their libido, then duty calls. So she has to take care of every single monster that comes, pun intended, within 20 feet of her range. Obviously, no other reason. After taking care of his primal urges, we find out that he can also become invisible, and we get a demonstration of that by Lily getting by him in front of the class during her presentation. And after that, apparently Lily is now in love with him, which a tidbit I didn't mention here earlier, but they don't explain why, but I assume it has to do with his latent magical abilities, like I mentioned before. But his seminal fluid is addictive. So it's getting to a point where if he just goes out and they will just fall in love with him. Now, he doesn't utilize that power, which kind of makes this morally okay, I guess. But Lily does fall in love with him. Now, I have to add another tidbit to this as well, because she was already leaning towards being in love with him anyway, so technically this isn't what happened here, but it did happen, and I had to bring it up because of what potentially could have been with this show. This show could have been another, well, ugly bastard, ugly tentacle monster fantasy that it wasn't. It turned out to something a bit more wholesome, let's put it that way. So with all this new information, the next question I have to ask is, okay, why does Ichiro have the ability to just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, control his sentient being as a monster? Wouldn't turning someone into a monster basically turn them feral? They can't control their brain. They are no longer able to connect the synapses because they're a completely different being. Well, we get this flashback from Yuko. That's right, not only was Ichiro basically genetically predisposed to wield generationally prolific powers, but his grandmother was so gifted that she was one of the cherished few to teach witches magic. And on her deathbed, these were her last few words to Yuko.
あの子は呪われた存在。極東魔女組合により抹殺される運命を背負わされた海な子。
私は重荷には感じておりません。ただお師匠様と一緒にあの子を守れないのが寂しいのです。
手に負えない事態になった時はどうか無理をしないで。
いいえ、守ります。絶対に。
Yeah, now it all makes sense. But one thing I will say, as much as I love this lore dump, it was a bit weird to juxtapose all of this phenomenal lore right after she said she's addicted to a seminal fluid. And after this lore, we are about like 7-ish minutes into the show, 7-8 out of 26, I believe. And the rest of the show is basically just him, up until the end, is him going out of Lily and filling the entire school pool with his DNA. Now, I don't know about you, but they didn't mention or show a scene of them cleaning this mess up. So they basically just committed biochemical warfare by leaving that in the pool. So whenever another student comes into contact with that, they're either immediately addicted to his fluids or they will just die? I don't know how this works. After that wonderful plot thickening scene there, we're gonna find out that Yuko is pregnant. At max, it's been about a week, and she is somehow fully engorged. So I guess his seed is so powerful it biohacked her uterus and speedrun the impregnation, or
妊娠などではない。かや、どういうこと？これは転生の魔法です。古の邪悪な呪いです。
禁じられた魔法。
術者は人ではない。邪悪な魔術師。ファウスト復活を目論む泥人形。7体のゴーレムの一つ。アイゼン・ファウスト。
none of that was true. So apparently, we are introduced to another character, Kaya, and Aizen as well. I don't know what the chances were of this bootleg merchant just all of a sudden being Aizen, because that's plot twist. The bootleg merchant was Aizen. I don't know how he was betting on Lily buying the charm from him and using it on Ichiro to awaken his magical powers that happened a week or two before this exact moment. Because the moment we confirm all of this, then boom, the plot just skyrockets into a different dimension. But like, I have a couple questions. Why didn't he just hunt him down himself? Why didn't he just pull a genjutsu move like he does in the 3rd episode on Ichiro to make him impregnate Yuko, so therefore he doesn't have to waste his time setting up a shop in the middle of nowhere on the road waiting for Lily? What if she forgot his wallet? Now, if all that explained, in the 3rd episode, we kind of find out that Aizen was near the building the whole time, summons a genjutsu, makes Yuko induce labor by making sure she's able to lactate and ovulate, and it shows them giving birth to the egg, because plot twist, it was an egg she was pregnant with. Which I don't know why they would show us the scene of the egg exiting her uncensored, but censor everything else. I'm complaining because they need to be consistent. And once that happens, Yuko faints and is basically rendered unconscious. And Kaya has a flash of rage at this entire scene here, simply because of the fact that, well, we kind of find out later on in this third episode that her mother literally went through the same exact ritual as her master, because by the way, Kaya is another apprentice of Yuko, went through, except her mother died at the hands of Aizen. And there was no explicit purpose to it either. They don't explain. It just happens and Aizen's like, hey, kid, goodbye, Kawaias. And that's it. Once she gives birth, he takes the egg, disappears, and the Genjutsu disappears, and they're back to reality. And once the dust settles, Yuko is in her bed, and immediately, Kaya is trying to kill Ichigo.
まだ目を覚まさないね。かやちゃん、君と優子先生って。
師匠様の意志に背くこと、どうかお許しください。
かやちゃんどうかなされました？
今、師匠様を救い、アイゼン・ファウストの野望を打ち砕く方法がただ一つある。
その方法ってやっぱり
苦しませはしない。一瞬だ。
I found this funny because she could have ended the show right there by herself, because little did she know, Ichiro was the only person capable of stopping Aizen at any level. I'm glad she has horrible aim. Right when his back's against the wall, as you see here, Lily defends him. Now, she ends up getting a cut on her waist, which is referenced at the fourth episode with a decent callback, which I'm not gonna lie, shout out to you. And right when they're in the midst of trading blows, Yuko comes up out of nowhere, stops both of them, and faints again, therefore distracting them from fighting each other entirely. And we just move on to the next scene of Lily and Ichiro going at it. And after that, boom, we're in Aizen's lair, who sort of let them find him because he needed Ichiro to impregnate Kaya next to get on with his plan. Now, what is his next plan? Well, very simple. Number one, to lore dump about Kaya's mother and basically Fortnite dance on her mother's grave while she is in the same contraption that both Yuko and her mother were in to get forcefully impregnated in the same manner, and then have Lily watch. Once all that happens, Lily's in the cuck chair, uses magical potions and, well, literal powers to make them procreate with one another, create another offspring, and then Ichiro's eyes flash red, because through this entire series we see horns growing out of his head, or at least one up until this point, referencing the power growing and swelling inside of him that is getting harder and harder to contain or swallow down. Pun intended, I guess. So here's me thinking, end of this third episode, like, okay, that's gonna be it, right? There's no way it's gonna get any worse than this. Boom, first couple frames, fourth episode, we see both Lily and Kaya tied up and impregnated in the same way, Genjutsu manner, as if we are in some sort of ancient being's intestinal tract. Everything about this is, well, wild is a bit of an underwhelming word to put it. So at the end of everything, with the assistance of an inebriated and controlled Ichiro, Lily and Kaya will both give birth to worms. Okay. And once that happened, Aizen comes back into frame, was like, here you go, buddy. Take all this shit. Transforms Ichiro to his final form. And it's sort of a futuristic alien mecha thingy going on here.
Nanda!
And once in that final body, Aizen has full control of him. And right when he's about to transfer all of the power that was awakened into Ichiro to himself, Lily stepped in front of him and saved him. And, well, this sort of led to this scene happening here. Which was a callback to the cut I just mentioned earlier. Comical, I know. And right at the precipice of Aizen about to execute, eliminate, eviscerate other words that emphasize the amount of despair that Ichiro is feeling, he gets a light flashing before your eyes moment, a fantastical flashback, for lack of better words, of both his moments with Lily right after she sacrificed herself for him. And once she screamed, it snapped everything inside of him. The memories including seeing his grandma's last moments, talking with Yuko one final time before she passed away in the hospital. He actually saw his real grandma in the flashback, insinuating that his powers have fully awakened after absorbing the egg that was a byproduct of himself. He fully reverts back to human form, basically implying that he now has full control of the powers that were passed down, and he is fully able and capable of wielding his maximum potential, and now claims the title of Magician of Life.
誰に命令して
俺は戦う。愛する人を守るために。
バカな私の魔法が
優子先生を、かやちゃんを、そしてリリーを守るんだ。
And with this new power that he has bestowed upon himself, he turns Aizen into a tree, Hashirama style, and that's just the end of the show. And I say end of the show because after this, there's 12 minutes left, and it's just non-stop scenes, back and forth. They're just fucking around the entire way. It's Yuko, it's Taya, it's Lily. Bang, bang, boom. What do I have to say about this show? It was pretty fast-paced. The scenes were, not gonna lie, pretty accurate to the tags I mentioned before. Just inflation, pregnancy, tentacles, you named it, witches. Wasn't clickbait. I'll say that much. And on top of that, it feels like if you, I can't say ignore because the whole point of the series, but if you were to put aside for a second the mere coincidences just happening to fall upon each other to make this plot a thing, if we just assume they went perfectly, it's a pretty good show. Once you add the fact that, like I mentioned before, Lily just so happened to drop his charm on him, and he just so happened to have his powers awakened from said charm, and Aizen just so happened to be in the area that Lily is going to shop for the charm to be at. And on top of that, Ichiro just so happened to have his charm that his grandma gave him years ago before she died. And he just so happened to have it proc the moment he's at emotional distress. Now again, I feel like if they explain why it happened so opportunistically in that specific last bit of the show, it would make it a bit more tolerable for me to sit here and go, you know what? Perfect, phenomenal, 7 out of 10. But that just threw me off a bit there. But if you throw that aside, it's still a pretty good show, like I mentioned before. The pacing pretty good. 4 episodes, decent enough that you can get invested and involved with, but it's not too long to the point where you're just like sitting here just watching Bang Bus for 20 hours straight. It's marvelous. I would heavily recommend it 100%, even though I spoiled it for you. It's still worth the watch. Alright guys, I don't have an outro, but if I did, it wouldn't matter because no one makes fun of the video. Good night. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm working on like a 1 to 2 hour video about D. Gray Man, and I was writing notes for it at work. I think it's like my new thing now. I don't know how this can work algorithmically, but at this point, I don't care. What we're probably gonna do is watch it for the plot. It's gonna be like the regular content, probably like once a week, something like that. And then boom, 2-3 hour video essay on some random bullshit, and then back to watch for the plot.